Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining. We're just going to give it another moment or so for a few more people to join. If you're just joining us, we're just going to give it another moment or so for people to join. Just as we're waiting for a few more people to join, are we able to get you to select one of the emojis, either a thumbs up or a smiley face? Tell us how you're feeling today through our emojis. It would be great for you to use those all throughout the session. It would be great as you relate to some of the content as well. Great. Just also a few reminders as well for anyone who hasn't joined these webinars. Take a moment just to read through some of the housekeeping. Loving some of those emojis coming through. Thank you. All right, we also have a very, very packed agenda today. So I know we're going to kick off in just a moment, but as we're waiting for our final people to join, please take a moment just to look at some of the topics that we will be covering in today's webinar. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Protiviti's Cyber Awareness Month webinar series, which tackles cyber vigilance, ensuring safety in the digital age. My name is Lauren Cave, an Associate Director in our Digital Identity and Cyber team, and I will be your facilitator for today's webinar, designed to enhance your understanding and awareness of some very topical and relatable areas of cyber risk. I'd like to thank you all for joining and taking the time to learn more about how to protect yourself, organization, and family in our increasingly digital world. This is actually our fifth and final webinar in the series, where we have covered a range of topics critical to maintaining cybersecurity, both at work and at home. Over the last 4 weeks, our expert speakers have shared insights, best practices, and practical tips that can be implemented immediately. These sessions have covered keeping your executives safe, protecting our older population from cyber threats, keeping our customers' identities secure, and last week's topic was on establishing a secure digital environment for your kids. This final webinar will cover the topic, how to protect yourself from common cybersecurity scams, with our expert speakers, Belton, Flournoy, and Emma Spenwyn, who are both members of our cybersecurity team. A reminder to please ask questions throughout this whole presentation using the Q&A feature. We will have a few minutes at the end of the session to address as many of those as possible. And with that, I will hand you over to Emma. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. So we're going to kick off today just with a little bit of the scope as to what this webinar will look at. So really our key focus here are at home and when you're traveling. We've already had a whole webinar about being at work, and also I'm sure most of you are sitting through cybersecurity training yearly, if not more. I've got some customers that do it monthly, so I'm sure you're bored of all the at work cybersecurity training. This is really looking at you in your home environment, your family, and also when you're on the move and out and about, the things that you should be thinking about, and also some of the tips and tricks to keep yourself secure and trying to keep away those pesky individuals that are trying to get access to your data and everything else. So that's really our big scope here as to what we're looking at. So first of all, what is the problem? Why are we having this webinar? Why are we talking about it? Why do we have Cyber Awareness Month? And really, I'm sure you all can see the news headlines. It's a big problem in the UK. I mean, last year, you can see the stats there, 34% of people experienced a cyber attack. Now, you might think that sounds a little bit low. That's 34% of people that actually reported it. There's still this big taboo about, you don't want to feel stupid that you're the one that clicked the email or you're the one that needs to ask for help. But every day, all of us are being bombarded with emails, with different things coming in that if we just made that sort of split-set wrong decision, could end up with either our data being infiltrated, our credentials compromised, or even worse. So there is this big problem going on, and it's not necessarily going to get better. We just need to become more alert, more vigilant, and also we need to be able to prepare ourselves better. If something does happen, do you actually know what you're going to do about it? Have you got a plan in place? Have you got people you can speak to? And have you got the right apps and the right tools in order to protect yourself from it maybe happening again in the future? So there's a few other stats on there. Just have a look about sort of SIM swapping, fraud, juice jacking. Obviously, when we're going on holiday and we have to plug our phones into everything because we always need the battery, or we always need to connect to Wi-Fi. We just want to make sure that when you are making those decisions as to, right, I need to quickly charge my phone, you're thinking about what those repercussions could be and also trying to protect yourself. So we have a poll here, and it's asking the question, if your phone is stolen, do you have a list of key services you can call, cancel, etc.? So give us a little vote there. Let us know where you are. So it's either answer A, I don't know how to even access my phone information online. A lot of people are in that boat. Answer B, what? You just use the Find My Phone app or the Android equivalent. Option C, no, but I'd call my bank when I get home. That's obviously hoping you're still in the UK and not abroad. And D, yes, I know what services to contact if this were to occur. So give you a little bit of time there to give us a vote. We just want to see the general consensus of you guys as to where you sort of sit in those categories. Personally, I use an Android device, and they've just done a big update to the essentially the Find My option, but for Android. So there's a lot more now around remote wiping, around being able to lock your phone, do alerts on your phone, which I have to say, I'm sad to say, used to be more of an iPhone thing, that they were a lot more on top of it than Android. But Android's really pushed the boat out with this newest update to really try and give you more control back to your phone. So just wait for a couple more votes, and then hopefully we'll be able to then see what the answers are. Okay, so 55.6% of you say, I don't even know how to access my phone information online. Now, to be honest, I'm not surprised. It's one of those that we all have in our head, oh yeah, I'm sure I could do that. I'm sure there's a way of doing it. And to be honest, my family would probably phone me in the first place and say, Emma, what do I do? So it doesn't surprise me at all. We can see there a little bit of a mix there as to, yeah, you'd use your phone app or you'd call your bank when you get home. That's good. And then the lowest one there, you know what services are to contact if it were to occur. So kind of expected there, but also I wonder if anybody has actually done this in real life, be it that you've had your phone stolen or you've just sort of played it through to say, actually, do I know how to access? Do I know my password? Is there a way around it? If I can't, then do multi-factor authentication to be able to get into iCloud. So have a think about that. Think about, can you actually do it in the non-real life situation, in that scenario way? So what are our key AI emerging threats? So this is always something that everybody's talking about now. AI, it's going to take over. The robots are coming. I was recently in a taxi and they were telling me that AI is going to completely transform Uber. You know, you won't have taxi drivers anymore, and then all this sort of thing. But there's also AI threats amongst everything else we're doing. You know, we've all seen the Donald Trump deep fake videos and audio impersonations, and at the moment, a lot of it's done in quite a funny way. But there's also been scams around Martin Lewis seen to be promoting websites that he's got no affiliation with. Deep fake voice and phishing and vishing. There's been some scary stories out there where people have had phone calls from people impersonating family members or colleagues, trying to get them to give out their bank details. We've also got like automated hacking and exploits, which maybe for you as an individual doesn't feel like really much of an issue. But still, if you're getting maybe those automated phishing emails coming through, you're suddenly getting bombarded. You know, it's getting more sophisticated. Long gone are those days of having the Nigerian prince scams where, you know, you've got multi-million dollars waiting for you. All you have to do is just reply back to this email. People are getting a little bit more savvy in terms of how they're wording their emails. Voice-activated assistants is a really interesting one because the rise of the bots in people's houses, having the echo shows, having the dots, all that. And then all of a sudden now you've got technology in your house that's able to listen to things and also order on your behalf. And I've read some articles around people being scammed in terms of having things ordered to their house that they definitely didn't order, but actually it's all gone through their voice-activated assistants. And also, are you able to lock that down a little bit better? The last one I just wanted to mention was about privacy invasion, around AI surveillance. You know, it's all great having all these smart doorbells and cameras and everything else, but there's also, that could also be very well manipulated. You know, if you're on holiday, your camera knows you're on holiday because there's no movement in the house. Are you making sure that that is secure, that that couldn't be infiltrated or that couldn't be used against you?
Now I'm going to pick up.
I hand over to Belton.
Yes, and I'm going to pick up with covering some of the common scams that we want to educate you all about. And what's really interesting about some of these is it's just walking through what attackers have available to them. And so first, as Emma was mentioning, AI is everywhere. And for those of you who've used ChatGPT, you understand how powerful and beneficial it can be. But what if you could create a tool that leverages AI to analyze information about people that you've either been able to obtain illegally or based on publicly available information on their Instagram or Facebook? When you use AI in this way, it could be a powerful tool to help you to deliver tailored and customized communication to that individual about their likes, dislikes, in order to solicit a response or to get them to click on a link. So be wary about the emails you have. Not only can they look legitimate now, but they could reference authentic things about you. Not only is it phishing, but we also have vishing now. And as Emma alluded to, you might have seen some of the Trump, Elon Musk, Kamala Harris deepfakes. But we're starting to see this happening via phone calls. And if you hear from someone that you trust asking you for money urgently or immediately, you need to now double check that. The most famous example probably is when a CEO called one of their employees and asked them to immediately transfer $243,000 to a supplier. The only problem was it wasn't their CEO. It was a scam. And that happened in the UK. And we now are wising up to these types of things. So if you get a suspicious phone call from a family member, double check before sending that money. And finally, there's a man-in-the-middle attack. And the reason we wanted to call this out is because this is probably one of the more common ones that happen in public forums. And so this is where a hacker positions themselves between you and the connection point. And as a result, you're still connecting to that connection point. And they're still allowing you to access everything. So you have no idea that someone is analyzing everything that you send. The good thing is the only information they can see is what you're actively sending through that. But the bad thing is if you decide to go to a coffee shop, log into your bank account and start doing your online banking, they have visibility and they can access that. Now, I know lots of these seem like they're from a futuristic thriller movie, but they're happening right now and they do pose serious risks. But don't worry, we have lots of tips in our closing slides that are going to provide you with information of how to protect yourself. In this section, I guess we really wanted to expand upon some mobile threats. Now, I'm not going to touch upon all of these because we do have a few case studies that we're going to walk through that touch upon these. But these really are becoming a more lucrative way for cyber criminals to target the individual. I guess first is smishing, like phishing, but it's via text message. And this is where someone is sending you a nefarious link to your mobile, hoping you'll click on it. Now, we sometimes think our phones are a little more secure, and if you click on something, it doesn't really matter, but it does. And the problem with smishing is you don't have a team of experts ready to jump in and work through issue management and issue resolution on your behalf. This is you. And if you click a link, you're the one who's going to have to suffer the benefits. So it's really, really important. It's critically important that you protect yourself and question them. Next, we're starting to see the rise of QR codes. People are adding these to their email signatures. You're going to events where you're supposed to click it to share your photos. Airports are adding so you can easily join the Wi-Fi networks. Well, now, I think we've historically just trusted these. We're scanning everywhere and we completely believe it. However, when a system asks you to scan and or pay, you need to just double check that you really trust that service. One of the largest growing trends right now are fake parking QR codes. And what they're doing, what the scammers are doing is they're taking legitimate parking services that have QR codes. They're getting a sticker and sticking the QR code over the existing one. So when you scan it, it takes you to a website that looks legitimate. You enter your card information and you pay. But in reality, not only are you paying a scammer, but you're now parked illegally because you actually haven't paid for parking. And so that can lead to a knock-on effect with what you're doing. Now, I guess the other one that I found probably the most scary is downloading apps from a trusted store when the app is actually designed to steal from you. And it's interesting because this was the case with the fake cryptocurrency app Trezor. Trezor leveraged a known brand name. They created a really slick interface, and they had a high star rating on both the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. It promoted users to enter their recovery seed password phrase for backup purposes once you downloaded the app. And then once they did, they were able to access the website, the victim's wallets, crypto wallets, and transfer all of the money out of their accounts. The only way this was identified was because Apple and Google had so many people claiming that their funds were stolen. So when you download apps, even if they look legitimate, be wary if it's asking you for sensitive and or private information that that organization should already have about you. Do not trust that these apps, just because they're coming from a legitimate store, are actually legitimate. Now, I think we think that we have to be wary of online, and we try to think of ourselves as cyber savvy. But as Emma alluded to earlier, there's some things that we really just want people to be aware of. The first is juice jacking. And this is where a USB charging point has been compromised. So attackers are starting to compromise charging points in hotel rooms and airports and public USB charging stations. And this is where they essentially create some sort of USB that plugs into the other USB with a front. So you actually only see the USB. And when you plug your phone directly into that, they can access your information and or install malware on your computer. The best way to stay safe here is carry a portable charger or always plug your phone in an outlet. I never, ever used USB in airports at all anymore. As a cybersecurity leader, I'd be remiss if I did. The next is rogue charging cables. We're starting to see an influx of malware devices that are used on cheap charging cables that could be bought from a legitimate store. So unless you know that organization does their due diligence on their own supply chains, don't trust cheap charging cables. Pay the money to get one from a reputable source, because we're starting to see an increase in compromised hardware. And then lastly, SIM swapping, which is probably one of the more interesting ones. This one actually isn't really something that's attacking you. They try to attack your mobile phone provider. And this is where they convince them that they need a new SIM card sent, and they either try to intercept it from the mail or they have it sent to a new address. Now, while this is one of the harder ones to protect yourself from, there are some things you can do to stay safe. One, make sure you're not using the generic what's your mother's maiden name as one of your password security. Anything that someone can potentially find out easily, don't use that. Use something a little bit more complicated in order to verify who you are with your phone providers. Make sure you're always using 2FA And if you ever notice an interruption in your service, be sure to respond immediately. Now, here are a few real world examples, and I really loved creating this slide. There were so many so many examples we could use, but we really wanted to just bring 3 that we thought were interesting. The first is juice jacking. As we mentioned, this is where someone harvests it. Now, in this example, there was an LA individual who went into a public place and they plugged their USB phone in. Well, the hackers had compromised that charging station, and as their phone was charging, they were doing other things, but malware was installed. Over the next few days, that malware started looking at all the apps that were being accessed and the passwords, and they were able to obtain the bank details. And a few days later, their bank was compromised, and this led to identity theft and unauthorized withdrawals. That is horrible. Identity theft. Not only did they take money from you, but they got enough information to pretend to be you. The next example, which is really, really creepy in my opinion, is there's a fitness enthusiast, and she was quite happy to share all of the workout data that she had on her app. She always shared her running routes with her friends, but it was available to anyone who actually could see the service. A stalker really liked how she looked, really started looking at the routes that she ran regularly and how frequently she ran and the foot traffic on those sites. The stalker then knew where that victim would be on most days because that she was publicly making that information available. And so while she was on the run one day, the stalker confronted the individual, and that person's safety was compromised. And so when you're thinking of just sharing your data because you don't really think it matters, you don't think it has an impact, understand it does. Understand the implications of making this information publicly accessible and available to people. Now, this third one I found super scary. My Bluetooth is pretty much on a lot of the time. Now, this was a business person who attended a Las Vegas conference. Many of us attend conferences, but what we don't think to do is when we're in publicly crowded places for extended period of time, turning off our Bluetooth. And this person didn't. So they were just there. They had their Bluetooth on. They weren't even thinking about it. Well, a hacker was able to hack into their phones using the Bluetooth because of proximity. They were able to access the login credentials that the individual used while they were in that area. And that hacker was able to access not only their personal information, but their corporate information as well. And so that actually led to unauthorized withdrawals and financial transfers, but it also enabled them to steal data from the corporate mobile phone that was used at that conference. So again, Bluetooth sniffing is new and it's here. So turn off your Bluetooth when it's not needed and be very sensitive to the information that you are sharing. Now I'm going to pass back over to Emma, who's going to provide some key configuration tips.
Sorry, come off mute. Thank you, Belton. So first of all, we've, one of the, I suppose, the obvious ones, one that you always hear in your training at work is using multi-factor authentication where possible. So many more services are now adding on to this, even for your personal email, be it Hotmail, be it Google, it's asking you to sign up for it. And okay, it's a little bit more of a hassle because then you're having to find your phone or find whatever else to authenticate, but it gives you that extra layer of security. It makes sure you are the one trying to access. When you're connecting to a public Wi-Fi as well, I mean, there's two sorts of things that could go wrong here. First of all, you've got that somebody could obviously try and get into your phone. You could be infiltrated, and this is where we look at having a VPN, but also trying to connect to a genuine network. It's a lot more common now that people are creating these sort of spoof networks or networks that seem very, very likely to be the one you're looking for, but there's something that's slightly off. There's an extra full stop. There's one of the letters is slightly not quite the right font. And people are doing this to try and trick you in order to join these Wi-Fi networks. And then that way they have that little bit of an into your phone. You want to limit your app permissions and delete old and unused apps. The person you were 5 years ago may not be the same person you are now, but but you've still got all these apps collecting all this data on you. And it's great how everything is synced. But like Belton was talking about the fitness apps, there's so many apps now that want to know your location, want to know how many steps you're doing a day and whereabouts you've been and how many kilometers you've traveled. But if it's an app you're not using and not an app that you personally are gaining anything from, get rid of it. Make sure that you're trying to limit your data as much as possible. And also mentioning about the location bit there, on a personal note, if anybody uses Snapchat or you have children that use Snapchat, be very aware that there is a location feature on there that will actually pinpoint where a user is at the given time they're using their Snapchat. I can't quite remember if you have to opt into it, but certainly if you ever go on the map, you can see people and you can actually direct yourself to that person's location. I've personally got family that are in their teens and they love Snapchat, they use it all the time, but just be aware that that could be open to anybody then finding out where that person is when maybe they don't want them to. Obviously, we've spoken about disabling Bluetooth and NSC when not in use. It's a great habit just to save a bit of your battery anyway, if you're not thinking about it from a cybersecurity point of view. But also think, do I need all this stuff on? Do I need everything blurting out all the time, including like your location? And then enabling remote wiping and remote locking and remote tracking. It's very simple to set up. You know, it'll take you less than 10 minutes to do, and then it's there. You've got it. You've got it sorted. If something were to happen, okay, this is the web address I need to go to. I know what my login details are, and I know what I can do on it. Just that little bit of hygiene will then get you in a really good place. If something were to happen to your phone, not necessarily it's stolen, you might just break the screen, you might not be able to log on to it, and therefore you need some of these remote capabilities. So I've just put together a couple of tips here for how to stay safe at home specifically. So securing a Wi-Fi network. Now, I bet if we did a poll here to say how many of you actually changed the default Wi-Fi password on your router when it arrived? Probably most of you will say, no, I mean, it was scrambled numbers and letters anyway. But just remember that those boxes go out all over the world. There's also, and you don't know if it is really a unique password. You don't know if that password may have been compromised before it got to you. Logging into your router, you'll be able to find details sometimes on the back of your router, sometimes in the handbook it came with. It's quite easy to change that password, but then it makes sure that it's your network. Nobody else can get into it. Nobody can try and use a password list or credentials they found online to try and hack into it. Obviously, enable two-factor authentication. We've spoken a lot about that. And make sure you're updating your devices regularly. You know, we all hate those pop-ups that come on all the time whenever you log into your personal computers, but they're there for a reason. Those patches are there to keep you secure, to try and protect you from those known vulnerabilities. So by dismissing them because, oh, I need to do this, you're not really helping yourself. Try and get into a good habit of having those updates done regularly, obviously for the known software that you're using, and therefore trying to keep yourself as secure as possible. Password managers are always great. A lot of people are using them at work, but actually not many people use them in their home life. But we still have, if anything, probably more passwords that we're using. Try and find a way that works for you, that therefore you can keep your passwords safe and secure, but also making sure that they're different, that you're not using the same or a repetition of similar passwords for all your important accounts. Installing security cameras, doorbell cameras, you know, we're thinking here a little bit about personal security. Personally, I don't have any cameras inside my house. I don't want there to be any reason that my personal information is compromised, so I won't have any cameras inside my house. But I have them on certain areas of my house outside, just to make sure my perimeter is secure. And also I can see who's coming to the door. It may be that you don't want to speak to the person. It may be sort of unsolicited marketing or something, but it gives you that extra layer of security. Now, backing up your important files, this is something I really bang on about a lot to my friends and family. You know, all those lovely pictures we've got of children that, you know, have been born into the family and, you know, we want to have their journey going through. But actually, what would happen if suddenly you lost that? A lot of people are still saving on their desktops or still saving on the hard drive on their laptops. But is there somewhere else you could be saving them? Have you got a hard copy somewhere? Have you got it in the cloud? Could you put it onto a hard drive? It's really important to make sure that the things that you want to keep online, that you still have access to them if something were to go wrong. Obviously, being aware of phishing and scams. I've put the number up there for action fraud. And action fraud is great. Just go on the website. You can report scams to them. You can forward emails to them. If there's anything that you're not sure about, or you want to give other people the heads up. Enhance your physical security. Installing smart lighting and timers. You know, I think we've all probably grown up with having the lights come on when we're on holiday and time switches. But actually, they get even smarter now. You can get curtain closers and blind open and closers. You can really make it look like, I suppose, in Kevin's home in Home Alone, that there's something going on in the house when you're not there. So think about actually what are those points that people might recognise in your house. If we all know that the light goes on at 6 p.m. every night, is that really helping your security? Or do we all just know that that's what's going to happen when you're on holiday? Is there other ways of automating it? And then finally, securing your Internet of Things devices. So we've put it as IoT because there's so many devices in our house now that are connected to the internet, connected to different things to try and make our lives easier. But again, think about your default password, think about the updates that are coming through, and thinking about who else can connect to them. My star tip there is implement layered security at home. It's not just a password now. See if there's other ways of securing it. Add in multi-factor authentication. Think about the physical security of those devices. And then if I click on, I've also done the same for while traveling. So some of these are quite similar, securing devices, accounts, you know, we've spoken a bit about using VPNs and legitimate Wi-Fi's. Also, disabling auto connect on devices. Now, just because you've connected that Wi-Fi before, you don't want everything all the time auto connecting. Certainly if it's a network you're not familiar with. It's good to have that pause of thinking, A, do I need to connect to this? And also, what am I going to be doing on this network? If you've suddenly connected to the Wi-Fi at, say, a Costa Coffee, and you thought you were on your 5G and you're just about to send somebody some money through a bank transaction, actually, you haven't really got that time to pause there and think, what network should I be on? Because the internet's working. So have a think about actually what networks are you auto connecting to, and do you need to be connecting automatically every time you join some of them? Obviously, being aware of phishing and social engineering, that could be a whole presentation in itself. And keeping documents secure, making sure you're utilising things at hotels like safes, you know, thinking about if somebody, let's say a maid, was in the room, what devices could they have access to that actually could compromise you? Putting things like your iPad, your smartwatch, those sort of things in the safe while you're out at the pool all day. We spoke a bit about the lost phone list, having activities in case your phone is stolen, and also how to connect to them. I really urge people, certainly from the results of that poll, to, when we finish this, log on to your Find My iPhone for Apple or for the Android equivalent, and actually take a few minutes to say, okay, this is how I'd get onto it, this is what I can do, and then is there anything else that I need to kind of fill the gap on? Mentioned about turning off locations, sharing and not scanning QR codes from unknown sources. Be aware about engaging in text and WhatsApp conversations with your bank. It's very unlikely you'll ever have to reply back to your bank via WhatsApp. Obviously, things change all the time. You never know, next year that might be their way of communicating. But again, think about what it is that they're asking. Something I always say to friends and family is go back to the original source. So if you've got an email coming through that's saying about a transaction that is suspicious, rather than clicking on that link in the email, go back to your banking app, the thing that you know, the thing you're using every day as your bread and butter, and check it that way. Don't go for that easiness of just pushing the link, because that's probably the thing that's going to compromise you. And of course, be aware of the physical security risks. Who's around you? Who could have access to your devices? Who is even listening in on maybe some of your conversations that you're having? Just be aware of your surroundings. And that's what my top tip is there. Be aware of your surroundings when using your mobile devices in public, because really that is one of the key things for social engineering. That's where people are listening in, understanding a little bit more about who you are, potentially who you work for, who's in your household, where you're going on holiday, who you've just had an argument with. All of that can really build a picture of yourself, and maybe some of that information you wouldn't want to then be used against you. So Belton's got a poll here for you all.
And now we're going to be moving on to another poll. So today, first off, I can't even just stress how much fun to build this deck was with Emma. I think we loved researching all of these trends, and we learned a few new things. But we want to hear from you. Did you find this, like, did you learn something new today? You could say I didn't, but I found the session useful. You learned a few new things. You learned quite a few new things. Or wow, you had no idea there were so many threats out there at this level. Please put your comments, and while you're responding, I'm going to talk about one example of a cyber threat that I had heard about a few years ago. This is when a Barbie doll came out in 2015. It was called Hello Barbie. It's made so children could record to talk to their Barbie doll. They would record it, send it to an online center. They would use AI to analyze what the child said, and then they'd send a response. During that process, it did a few things. One, children were really revealing private and sensitive personal information about them and their parents. But then two, hackers were able to access the information, and they actually used the microphones to talk to people's children. And so they were talking to people's children while these children were in their own homes, in their own rooms, while their parents were downstairs thinking they were safe. So be very, very wary in this new world and these new interconnected devices. So let's see. Okay. We had people who learned a few new things, as well as kind of quite a few new things. So that's good. I think the vast majority of people learned a few new things today. That was the goal of our session, and that was really the goal of what we wanted to get through. So thank you all for chiming in. As we kind of end our session, I just really want to thank you all for joining. We kind of talked about various aspects of cybersecurity, focusing on how to protect yourself while at home and while traveling. We know that these digital threats are growing. We know that hackers are now starting to find ways to attack the individual. We know with AI, that's going to be used by cyber criminals to launch more sophisticated attacks. And we hopefully providing some real world examples, such as Bluetooth, plugging your phone in, is providing you with more information on how to protect yourself. The crazy thing is, as Emma mentioned, corporates are investing a lot of money in educating you on what to click and how to keep the corporate's best interests safe. But many of us aren't listening, or we're laughing when we hear about you should be using a password manager. You should change the default password on your modem. You shouldn't click QR codes. Everyone's like, ha ha ha, yeah, that's right. And I'll do that at some point. When in reality, that's where these hackers are attacking because of that attitude. And so what we really need to do as cyber individuals is really help to educate people on what they need to do in order to keep themselves safe. So remember, cybersecurity is an ongoing process. We want you to stay vigilant. We want you to secure your mobile phones. Don't just rely on convenience. Work together to future-proof your digital life. Thank you so much for participating in today's session. Your engagement is vital. We are going to move to a Q&A now. So if you do have any comments, or if you had any questions, please send them through. You can also send them through to us via email and/or LinkedIn. And thank you.
Okay, we have a couple of questions for you, Belton and Emma. So the first one here, you noted phone snatching. I hear about this all the time. What are some of the first things I should do if my phone is snatched?
Well, I can start on this one. So one of my really good friends' phones was snatched a few weeks ago, and one of my colleagues' phones was snatched a few weeks ago, and I was able to hear kind of how they responded. But the interesting thing is, my best friend, when he had his phone snatched, he contacted his iCloud, he froze his phone, and he contacted his bank and froze his credit cards, and he thought that was done. He thought he was done. The next day, he got alerts saying people had started transferring money out of his mother's bank account because he didn't realize he had her passwords in his notes. He then also got notifications that he was locked out of both of his email accounts because he had 2FA on there, and they found email on his phone, and then they logged in and reset his passwords to his Gmail and his Yahoo, who actually recover email addresses for each other's. So not only did he lose money from his mother, he was also locked out of both of his email accounts. So the most important thing is make sure you understand the critical services your phone is connected to, not just your phone itself, because you can lock that down, but what can they access from looking at your phone, and what could they potentially look to also access if they go online with your iCloud and other information. So make a list of services associated with your phone and make sure you know how to access them without your mobile device. What phone numbers, what emails, so you can let them know that your mobile device has been compromised, because it's not just the device itself, it's everything now that's connected to it. Anything to add, Emma?
I was just going to say it's more from the prevention point of view. Obviously, we've seen a lot of people now having the wrist straps for their phones, but you know, the biggest thing you'll hear is just really be alert when you're walking around. I actually saw a video this morning of somebody having their phone snatched on Oxford Street, the motorbike, went on the pavement, literally swooped past, grabbed the phone straight out the lady's hand who was on the phone. So it's just being aware of your surroundings, you know, don't sort of sit in that comfort zone that, you know, you're on the phone, so why would someone steal it? Think about it when you're actually on that phone call, your phone's unlocked. So then they're not trying to get through that barrier of your password or your thumbprint, whatever you're using. So really, you know, treat your phone as one of your most important possessions because of the amount of things that are on it. It's not just the material cost of replacing, say, an iPhone. It's all your data, all your memories, all your photos that are contained within it that actually are that true value to you.
And just to add on, I think, Emma, the one thing you also sparked in my mind was when my colleague's girlfriend's phone was stolen, it was done with such violent force that she was thrown to the ground, and she's actually had to have surgery on her foot in order to start walking again. So it's not just the damage that can be done from a cyber perspective, it's a physical damage that can be done through the actual process of having your phone stolen. So stay vigilant.
Okay, thanks, Belton and Emma. So I think as we move into closing now, let's wrap up today's session, and I hope you found it insightful. I just want to thank you, Belton and Emma, for sharing your expertise and knowledge today. Just a few key topics from today's webinar. So we've covered securing yourself from common cybersecurity scams. We've looked at some of those emerging AI threats and common scams that are currently targeting individuals, and we've tackled how to keep yourself safe at home, travel, and work. We hope you found these insights informative and actionable. As mentioned earlier, this is our final of 5 cyber awareness webinars, and I'd also like to thank all of our series speakers and Protiviti contributors for making the series possible. If you've missed any of the webinars and would like to catch up, please select the QR code to download the series. This should be on your screen now. The series is also available on LinkedIn. Should you have any further questions, we will be sending out a follow-up email after this webinar, which you can respond to. So once again, thank you all for joining us today and taking the time to join the other webinars in the series. These webinars have been designed with real people and lifestyles in mind to provide valuable tips for sparking discussions with peers, family, employers, and cybersecurity awareness. We hope you've enjoyed the series. Thank you all very much.
And we promise this QR code is safe. Thank you.